big picture, this will be the fourth time under AJ Preller that the Padres will go to the postseason. Again, back to back. It's only happened one other time in franchise history. Is this commentary on AJ Preller for you?
Yes. I mean, here's the problem with AJ Preller. It's not a problem, but the problem with AJ Preller is he's tied so tightly to Peter Seidler, right? And if you were to ask a forgiving Padres fan, they would be like, man, you got to hand it to AJ Preller. That's a lot of playoff appearances back to back. Wow, this is a different organization than the one that AJ Preller walked into a decade ago. It has changed dramatically in terms of what the expectations are, what the talent level is, whether or not we can compete with the big boys like the Dodgers, the Red Sox, the Yankees, not just on the field, but off the field. That being said, someone who's less forgiving would tell you almost all of that was Peter Seidler. Almost all of that was the money that they spent on Tatis and Machado and yes, Hosmer and Bogarts and Darvish and whatever to build this team that, you know, competes with those other top tier MLB teams in terms of payroll and free agent contracts. So it is hard to give credit to AJ Preller. I also think it's hard to blame AJ Preller when things go wrong because it's not just AJ, it's what AJ and Peter have built.
Okay. Is this then commentary on John Seidler? This is his first year as the chairman of the San Diego Padres. Much controversy before the season began about this power struggle. People thought this would completely turn the organization upside down and that all the pieces would be shipped away. You make a good point about, I do agree that there was a tandem. There was a great partnership between Peter Seidler and the person who could execute his plan and his vision in AJ Preller. I don't know anything about John Seidler, but is this any sort of commentary on him? Or is this just still riding the wake of Peter Seidler's legacy?
I have an opinion and a question, but I would like you to answer your own question first, because I'm more interested in your answer before I sully it in any specific way.
What was my question?
Your question was, does John Seidler deserve credit for what we are putting down as a successful season, a back-to-back?
I don't think so. I mean, unless you're going to give him credit for not demanding that everything get traded away so that you can try to balance the books, then I'm going to say the answer from where I sit is a big fat no. Now, okay. He hasn't screwed it up, and I suppose you get a little bit of credit for not screwing things up in life and not saying, hey, listen, this thing, as I take a look at the accounting on this, we might want to trade some of these guys if we can. So let's get rid of some of these pieces here, and let's see if we can move on from some of the things that aren't nailed to the ground, like Xander Bogaerts and Fernando Tatis Jr. and Manny Machado. So I suppose you can say, well, he gets a little bit of credit for that, for at least having the common sense of not getting involved. But, I still think he hasn't done all that much. I think some of this stuff was kind of paint by numbers for him, whether it was the Jackson Merrill extension or even some of the stuff at the trade deadline. They didn't add any money at the trade deadline. And that was an edict, which came from where? So it came from up high that they couldn't. So that's why they ended up having to trade away prospect capital instead of actually just going out there and spending a little bit more money and adding money into the balance. So, I mean, he gets sort of an incomplete for me. I think he's mostly been a bystander on this season, but given where we were when the season started, and is it Sheil? I'm with her. Or is it John? I'm Team John. And, at the end of it, I think he has wise enough just to stay out of the way. Just stay out of the way. I'm guessing he's probably gathering a lot of information, and maybe we'll hear a little bit more about this power dynamic moving forward. It's another interesting question. You go to the postseason in back-to-back years, and I just said it, this will be the fourth time with AJ Preller as the general manager. Has he garnered an extension? Does he get an extension out of this, out of taking the Padres back to the postseason? We all know the circumstances that he's going into the final year of his contract. And I don't know. I would imagine he would want an extension. I haven't asked him. But, does he deserve one based on this team going back to the postseason back-to-back years? And given some of the questions that we had with regards to ownership, I think that's a fair conversation to have on the eve of this.
Okay, I'm first of all, your answer on John Seidler was exactly my answer. So I don't need to repeat it. Your question about AJ Preller is a great one. And I think I have a very simple answer, which is yes. I think AJ Preller has earned himself an extension because he was working in parameters that were handed to him that made things more difficult. It's why we started the season with Connor Joe and Jason Hayward in left field and Elias Diaz and Martin Maldonado behind catcher. And
Joe, I forgot that's how the season started with Connor Joe and Jason Hayward.
Yeah. So, you know, and a lot of Tyler Wade mixed in there and whatever. So I think the fact that this team is dangerous enough that they would not surprise you if they won a couple series in the playoffs based on where they started, which was entirely because of financial restrictions. And this team has been built this way by AJ Preller, staying within the financial restrictions, essentially by selling the one thing he was allowed to sell, which is the prospects in the future. I think he deserves credit for that. I know there are people that want to kill him for trading away prospects, but what else was he supposed to do to build this team to be competitive heading into the playoffs? So yes, I do think AJ Preller has earned himself an extension. This brings me back to the original question that I wanted to ask you about the John Seidler situation, because I know that you have little birds in the Padres front office that sometimes whisper things to you. What's the name of that guy? Game of Thrones, the bald guy. You know the guy. He's
bald
got the
guy?
the bald guy. He's got the little birds.
The eunuch?
Yeah. What's
Is that
his name?
what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying you have little birds that whisper things to you.
Yes, okay.
From inside the Padres front office. Have you heard any questions? And maybe this is a Shield Seidler question. Have you heard anyone bring up the prospect of this team being sold to a new ownership group?
I haven't heard that in a while. Have not heard that in a while.
I know there's like legal stuff they're tied up in, but based on the fact that AJ Preller has had to work within the restrictions of you cannot spend any more money than this, but we're not going to sell things off either, that feels like a holding pattern to me. And the reason to be in a holding pattern with not just the team, but the TV contract and everything else, it does sometimes bring into my mind the possibility of like, what if they just handed, tomorrow the Seidler group settles with Shield and everyone gets together and they sell the team to Mark Cuban for billions of dollars, and Shield gets her money, and John and whatever the other brothers' names, they get their money and they all go their separate way, and Mark Cuban gets to come in and he hands AJ Preller an extension and keeps the trains going.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, is this a good time even to be selling a Major League Baseball team? Depending on what's going to happen with the work stoppage that is widely considered as fact, like that is a thing that is going to happen. It's not a question of if, it's a question of what is going to happen and how long the work stoppage is going to last at the end of 2026. I'm not so sure. I don't know. I guess you get sort of mixed messaging on that, right? The Tampa Bay Rays did sell, the Minnesota Twins did not. So I don't really know. Is this a good time to be putting a for sale sign out front of a Major League Baseball team? It feels like that one has really sort of disappeared. There's not been any new reporting on it whatsoever in many, many months. I do feel like even us probably a bit premature, but just trying to get ahead of it because it'll happen. Like they're going to clinch. But, then I think the next thing will be, well, what is AJ Preller's future with this club? And it could just be as simple as, hey, he just goes into the final year of his contract and that's that. What's the big deal? Jed Hoyer just did it in Chicago and he got rewarded for it. So he ended up getting an extension. Maybe it's not the worst thing in the world, but, given some of the other stuff and some of the drama, the Palace intrigue with the Padres, I think it's at least fair to wonder, even going back to the letter to the season ticket holders about the price increase, right? We remember that. That was something that was signed by Eric Krupner that mentioned 11 players and a manager. And here's all the reasons why you're going to want to come back to Petco Park in 2026, fans. And there wasn't one single mention of AJ Preller. So, if you do want some of those whispers to go away, I think that there's a way that you can do it. There's definitely a way you can do it. But until then, it might not be the most important thing, but I think it'll be a thing.